What do you believe right now that's making you feel this way? And when you analyse it, you realise how irrational you can be at times.
Every single one of our major customers and minor customers all shut their doors overnight.
It's not sales per se, but the outcome of it is because people get to know you, they get to see you.
But, you know, what's the culture like at the business? What do we stand for, the values?
I've got to tick that box on my personal development program I don't really want to be here.
Scaling up a business isn't easy. If it were, we wouldn't have less than 4% of businesses scaling beyond 10 employees or around £1 million turnover level, and less than 1% beyond 50 employees. But the contribution that we make as owner-managers to our economies is immense and should never be underestimated. Yet it can be a tough gig for all of us at times, and only other business owners truly understand the challenges that we face. And through ScaleUp Radio, we aim to help make things a little easier. We interview guests who have been where you are now and may have faced some of the challenges that you are facing. And they offer their thoughts and advice on what has worked for them, as well as what didn't. And we've also combined many of the lessons from these interviews and also through working with hundreds of owner managers over the last 10 years or so into a practical scale-up handbook that we've called the Entrepreneurial Scale-Up System, or ESUS. And it's for owner managers like you and me as we navigate our own scale-up journey. And you can order a copy through your favorite online book retailer or by going to all the W's, esusgroup.co.uk, www.esusgroup.co.uk. I'm still buzzing after this interview, and I know that you will be once you've listened to it. So today I talk with Tim Bennington. He is the co-founder of Manta Hair, and we discuss the story behind the creation of his flexible hairbrush, which was inspired by his wife's struggle with hair loss due to cancer. So a great beginning. Tim also has a very successful background in building a network of 56 hair salons under the brand of Headmasters. So he's no novice to business. The business launched in 2018. Early on, he was very strong about awards, and they won a TV program, and then he's now expanded into over 30 countries, and he's selling the product on multiple platforms. So it's that flexible hairbrush, and he's patented the product, trademarked it, all of those great things. So there's lots of lessons to learn. We talk about the development side, how we managed the struggles and how we managed to overcome some of those in actually creating the product in the first place, some of the things he got right, some of the things he got wrong, but also then in terms of marketing and distributing it, all of those great things. So lots and lots of great lessons that Tim shares, and particularly for anybody that's developing a product-based business. But actually, you know, there's just stuff in here for whatever kind of business you're running. So let's go across to Tim for the rest of his story. Welcome to another episode of ScaleUp Radio. I'm here with Tim Bennington, who is the co-founder of Manta Hair. So, Tim, welcome to ScaleUp Radio.
Hi, Kevin. Yes, lovely to be here. Very excited.
Pleasure to have you on. I'm really interested in finding out more about Manta Hair. So there's a bit of a clue in the name, but what's Manta Hair about?
Well, the story goes back to, I better go back. Manta is a flexible hairbrush.
Okay.
And it's designed to be like bristles on your fingers. But I better go back a bit just to explain what this is all about, because there's a lot more to it.
And before we do that, because I know you've had some pretty global success on it, so can you give us an idea of where you are with the business at the moment, what stage you're at?
Well, we launched at the end of 2018, probably 2019, and we did pretty well in our first year. We managed to win a TV program called The Customer Is Always Right, which we won our episode, which did really well then. We also we launched on QVC. And so we started getting some momentum in 2019, and I was very excited by that. And then we had that lovely situation with COVID. Yeah, which was really exciting in terms of challenges, not because of the situation with COVID, but it really made you dig deep into how we were going to do things. Luckily enough, we were running Manta on a shoestring then, so it was quite flexible to put it on hold. So we did take a bit less money, but we still managed to work much more with the pure play, the online business, which worked well. So currently we are in about 30 countries, which seems really good. Some of them are big distributors, some of them are individual businesses. And how we worked is once we got our message out on Instagram, people kept approaching us. Which was really lovely, but sometimes it meant we were approached by Goop, Gwyneth Paltrow's website, who loved the idea. Anthropology in America. We went from in Europe, we went to Scandinavia. We're now in Japan, Thailand, South Korea, launching in China now as well, which brings its own challenges because that's more pure play and online business. So we've sort of grown a lot, but what we have done is done loads of platforms. So where we're at now is, which in some ways I wouldn't sort of advise, because sometimes you find a platform you like your own website, direct to consumer, or bricks and mortar. But we've seemed to go on to bricks and mortar, our own website, Amazon, duty free. So we've gone on QVC on TV. So we've sort of gone in every direction, which sounds great, but stretches you completely.
Right. So,
So I've sort of responded to people's enthusiasm about the brand rather than just say, let's stick with one channel.
Okay, well, we'll dig into that in a moment. We probably ought to explain what's special about Manta hairbrush, because it's not just any old hairbrush, is it?
No, well, the story goes back. My history is I'm a hairdresser, and I learned hairdressing from leaving school. I didn't have a very good education, more because it was me not working very hard. So I would say, uneducated. And then when you're uneducated, not unintelligent, but uneducated, I went into hairdressing and I loved it. And we grew these salons called Headmasters. And we got to now about 56 salons. So that was great. And about 10 years ago, I was doing only a couple of days a week at Headmasters. We had 3 kids under 4 years old. Danny, my wife, who's Austrian, we had a home in Austria, and I was doing a week in Austria and a week in England. And life was very easy. And then Danny, my wife, has got a history of this BRCA gene, which is a cancer gene, and she got breast cancer at the age of 33.
Gosh,
So suddenly our life turned upside down. And with these 3 kids under 4 and her being so ill, we had to go through a real change in how we were doing stuff. She's now 10 years clear, and she does lots of stuff for menopause and things.
Excellent.
But what happened was, when her hair was growing back through cancer, I said to her, look, Danny, you've got to brush your hair, right? She was so attached to this wig she had, she wouldn't brush her hair. And then I said, Danny, you need to exfoliate the scalp, stimulate it to get hair growth. And she wouldn't. And she said to me, look, every brush I use hurts my head and hurts my hair. And the history of the hairbrush is, funny enough, interesting. The pattern was by Samuel Fiery in 1871. And the way a hairbrush works, it's a fixed base with a bristle that bends, right?
Yep.
And your mother and your grandmother or whatever will be teaching you to hold the hairbrush and pull it through your hair.
Yeah.
Now, that very action, you're hoping the bristles will give rather than your hair, but you never see broken bristles on the floor. So it's only matted hair in the hairbrush. And I thought back to my hairdressing days with the salons, and all I would be telling all my hairdressers is clean your brushes. I don't want dirty brushes, right? There'll be masses of hair in the brushes.
Yeah.
Now, then I started thinking, this is a wrong way of brushing your hair, because you're pulling, and the very action is you're just hoping that it's not going to break the hair. Yeah. So I thought I needed to change this. And Danny said to me, I just wish I had bristles on my fingers.
Okay.
So that was a eureka moment. And I tell you, Kevin, what happened was it was cathartic for me as well, because when she said this, which is in 2013, I decided to invent the Manta because there was nothing like it. And I went outside the hairdressing industry because I wanted to find a material that would be really good for skin. Mm-hmm. So it would feel really good on the skin, feel nice to touch, and be really thin. And I looked at all different options. And to be fair, that her getting the 5-year all clear was the amount of time it took me to make the Manta. Right. And I went everywhere. I went to designers. So I didn't have a problem with the money. I wasn't thinking this as such a business. I wanted to invent it. Mm-hmm. And we even went to the adult toy business to find materials, because adult toys have to be lovely for the skin. They have to feel nice. They have to be durable. And it was totally outside the remit of hairdressing, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So the story to get there I can go into, but it was one journey. You know, things like serendipity. One person you meet leads to another. Yeah. And you don't realize how you get to these places. But what I would say is, when I thought of the idea, I didn't think linear, I think laterally. And because I couldn't find what I wanted to, I went to see some hairdressing companies, and they said, oh, just cut a tennis ball in half, put some pins through it, and then send it to a factory and they'll make it for you. I said, no, I don't need that. So what we ended up doing was a twin shot overmold process.
Okay.
Now, so I better explain that.
You probably had, yeah.
That's one part which has no memory, which was the bristle part in a mesh.
Okay.
Bonded onto the body, which had the memory. So what happened was, when you have one part, which is the bristle part of the mesh, bonded onto the memory, they're two different materials. But what that means is it can bend all the time.
Right.
And that flexibility means it's so versatile. So most times with a hairbrush, you would just use it to brush your hair, or you'd use a scalp brush, or you'd use a detangling brush, or use a styling brush. Basically, you'd have to buy 5 or 4 brushes for everything you need.
Okay.
Manta means you can do everything. So you can shampoo with Manta. You can apply your treatments with Manta. You can detangle with a Manta. You can style with it. You can use it with a hair dryer. Mm-hmm. So it is really like having bristles on your fingers. And what's most important is, if you bend the Manta in half, and when you've got it, it's really pliable, and you go down the hair, you can feel if there's a knot. So it's not the action that traditionally you just pull it, and then that means you can ease it off, so you break less hair. Now, if I said what's important about this, if you think about 100 years ago, when hairbrushes, going back to Samuel Fari, invented it, people were dead by 55. It wasn't as big a problem, right? Now, people live to 80 on an average age, and 60 is new middle age, especially for women, right? They want to look great at 60, and why shouldn't they?
Yeah.
So if you take it into account, compare it to teeth, when you brush your teeth, when we were kids, you would just be told to brush your teeth, right? Now you massage the gums, you go circular motion, you spend more time on it, you floss your teeth, and you look after your teeth so they're good through your lifespan. What's happened with hair is, it's the brush. People spend £200 on their cut and colour, but they'll spend £10 on a hairbrush, which they'll rip through their hair, which when you're a teenager doesn't seem to be an issue. As soon as you get to the age of 30 plus and you've had postpartum hair loss with babies, or you've got perimenopause or menopause or stress or illness, your hair starts coming out a lot more. And that's when you have issues. And then we react, and it's sort of too late, you see.
Excellent. And I can imagine the importance of that material and the challenge of finding a material that fits all those needs? Because presumably there's a bit of heat involved as well if you're going to use it with hair dryers and things, isn't there? So it's got to.
It's a very good point. Yeah, I mean, it's made of a thermoplastic rubber compound and a thermoplastic elasticator. I never was into all this, and now I need to know it's how it bonds together, the heat, how durable it is, how flexible it is, and it really has to be. You're changing the way you look after your hair, so it is heat resistant to about 80 degrees. Although it's more than that, but we always reduce it.
Yeah.
So I've invented, that was the original Manta. I've also invented one called the Pulse, and you'll see the connection now. And the Pulse vibrates, and that delivers 2,000, 4,000 pulsations per minute, which stimulates the scalp. So if you think of it this way, a normal toothbrush and an electric toothbrush, right?
Yep. Yeah.
And this is more like the electric toothbrush version. But what I say to people is you never squeeze toothpaste in your mouth and brush your teeth. So why should you put shampoo and plonk it on top of your head and try and shampoo, right? What I say is apply it to your Manta, a less amount.
Yeah.
Turn the pulse on or your usual Manta and then stimulate the scalp, massage the scalp. That way you use less product, but what you're doing is stimulating the scalp to get blood and oxygen to the hair follicles, which feeds them. And also you're exfoliating the scalp and getting any sebaceous glands you're cleaning off, any product, any dry skin, and that will also exfoliate the scalp. And that's what needs all that. So it all makes complete sense. But for years, we've been told to brush our hair a certain way. So it's a real education process.
Great. So let's go back to when you're developing. So that whole. What lessons did you learn in that development process, that product design process?
Well, first, that's a really good point, Kim, because when I first did it, I was obsessed, and so what I would say is I didn't just think of the industry I was in. I thought of what I wanted to achieve. So that made me go outside. If you're making a hairbrush, you'd think go to a hairbrush company, right?
Yes.
I didn't go to a hairbrush company. So I went outside that remit because I couldn't, they were doing something one way and I wanted to change that.
Yeah.
So that's what I learned. What I did learn was patience, because the amount of times it went wrong were so many that Danny, my wife, thought I was mad to carry on with it. And I'd spent a small fortune doing it. So to get it to market, just to get it cost me about £200,000.
Goodness. And
that isn't logical, but you've got to remember, logic wasn't in this then. It was more about, I was sort of obsessed by it because of Danny's condition, and I got it was cathartic for me to do it. But it was such a good idea that it was worth pursuing.
And this is self-funded, is it, from Headmaster?
Yeah. Well, Danny's not too happy about it, but it's self-funded. So
it was an expensive hairbrush at the end of the day.
Oh my giddy aunt. Danny said to me, "What are you doing?" But I used all my dividends I had from my business all the time. But I'll do it all again tomorrow. I love it.
Great.
And I haven't paid myself yet because we could put more money in, but I just love it. I love the journey. We got people in Japan that are showing me shampoo techniques with it. We even have a distributor in Ukraine that joined us in June. Gosh. And they are ordering probably, about £8,000 a month of product.
Goodness me.
In Ukraine through a war.
Yeah, amazing. So you must have had all sorts of ups and downs in that research, that development period.
Yeah, well, I would say to you that one thing that cost me all that money, when I said about the money that we put in, there was an expensive design fee because I used a company that designs for Red Bull and various other high-tech companies. Right. I didn't go, I went all out because they understood it and it had to be good.
Yeah.
Secondly, I patented the product. It's patented in USA, UK, Europe is pending, and China is patented. And that does cost a lot of money. Initially, you have 1 year free, not a year free, but you have a global patent to get people.
Yep.
But a year goes so quickly.
Yeah.
And then I started trademarking everything. Now, to trademark also costs a lot of money. So I trademarked, and I would trademark in as many countries as I could, because I knew that we'd be in there. So I trademarked China, and we're only in China now. And I trademarked that in 2015.
Yeah. So you're thinking well ahead. And from the patent aspect, what aspect of the product of the brush were you able to patent? Is it the flexible material?
A really good question, actually. No, that's a really good question. Because patents, you can get a patent, but it can be very vague in a sense, because that means people can get around it. What we've actually patented is the point of having two parts bonded together to get the flexibility, which is quite tight, because most people would try and make this brush with a single shot mold. But that means the material of the body would have to be the same as the bristle. Yeah. And it doesn't work the same way.
Yeah.
So what we can do is so for example, we're developing mantas for thick and wavy hair, for afro hair. Now they have to have a different bristle type than they would for the original.
Okay. Yeah.
So consequently, you couldn't have the same body as the bristle. So it gives us that flexibility. Pardon the pun.
Yeah, yeah, very good, very good. So lots of great things there. What would you do differently, perhaps, or what would you advise to somebody that's going through that development stage? Got a great idea for something.
Well, it's a hard one to advise how to do it differently, because patents, if you really believe in something. I mean, I've only patented in a few big countries, but it equates to about 2.5 billion people. So that's about enough, really, right? Yes. But if I would say that if you focused on one country, let's say I would say this, right? UK, I really wanted to focus on. But you could trademark in the UK only and then patent in the UK and see how you get on. But there is a time limit on patents. You have to sort of put the patents in at the same time. You can't just put one in after another. So it is a challenge for you, because if your idea is really good, people can just take it. But my point is, if it's really good and you've got a good brand, then by the time you get to market and people love your brand, they will choose your brand over another brand. And there is enough for everyone to go round.
Great. So hence your focus on not just patenting it, but also trademarking and protecting all of the brand elements. Yeah.
Yeah. And getting the website straight away, because what you almost need to do, the name Manta, which I'll explain, but I got Manta because there is a reason why we called it Manta, but also there wasn't, so many names are gone. You know, when you're thinking up a name of a company, you can go all the way down the line, register your company, everything, and then realize the website's gone. So I would do some research first on what you want to call your product and what's generic and what works, and also how it works as a generic name in other countries if you want to go abroad.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a good point. I remember working in the pharmaceutical industry, and somebody wanted to call a product Amaban or something, and I believe it meant boiled potato in Japanese or something. So I may have got that wrong, and apologies to any Japanese speakers, but it's something along those lines.
Well, yeah, you are right. I think Manta has connotations for a dog or a barking or something in Japan. Yeah. So there was something like that, but you're right. It's very difficult to find a name that is generic, and also everything has gone. Yeah. You know, like even these made-up names that you make up your own word, they seem to have gone all the time.
Yeah, that's right. So what was the origin of Manta? What is?
Well, Manta, it looks like a manta ray because there's wings to it, right? So it looks like a manta ray. Yeah. Manta is also Spanish for blanket, and blankets protect you.
Yep.
So what we want is, one of the things we say is like Manta can hug around your hair, which like a blanket would do. So the connotations were, if you think about a blanket, it keeps you warm, protects you, it moves, it's soft, it's supple. So I quite like the name.
Very good. So you've patented the product, and you're getting to the point now where you're thinking about manufacture, and you presume, what were you doing from the market research point of view and price points, and working out, what you needed to be able to make it for example?
Yes, now that's another good point. I got someone someone I knew through someone else to come, and she's a lecturer actually at Exeter University, and Jill Nurse, her name is, and she sat with me and went through some. She teaches business, and she went through some ideas of forecasts and costings and things. So I would say always try and find someone. There's always someone super clever that would be willing to help. And even if you pay them a little bit, they'll sit down there and work stuff out. Yeah. And she had access to Mintel reports, which is Mintel.
Yep.
And Mintel reports are expensive to buy, but they tell you what the trend is. So they do trends on different things over the world. Mm-hmm. So if you were looking at something, I don't know, anything you're making, I don't know, lipstick or something, they would tell you the trend on lipsticks. And with hairbrushes and hair care and scalp care, it showed the trend over the next 5 years.
Okay.
And the growth was enormous.
Yeah.
So I knew there was a market there for it from the Mintel reports.
Right.
Then we did the costings, which worked. But then I did make mistakes in that as well. So we've recently put the price of the Manta up because of the cost of shipping and manufacturing and everything. And I didn't have enough margin for the distributors.
Okay. And is that because costs have changed, or just because you perhaps didn't get it quite right from the start?
A bit of both.
Yeah.
What happens is when I first did it, you take it, you always think you're a bit of a fraud and no one's going to pay for something because you have inferiority complex, like imposter syndrome, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
So as I made it, I was too close to it. So sometimes you think, this Manta was originally £25, and a normal hairbrush, like a Tangle Teaser or something, they're about £12. So you kept thinking, why would anyone buy this? At double the price.
Yeah.
And now we put it at £30 for an original Manta and £70 for the Pulse.
Yeah.
And people buy it all the time because they see the value. But sometimes when you're in it too closely, I would say ask someone else to try and look at it and be objective.
Yeah, good. And you mentioned that you perhaps didn't allow enough originally for the distributors. So have you got any rules of thumb that we should be bearing in mind from?
Well, it does depend in which industry you're in. In beauty, beauty is a massive markup generally. I mean, a lot of beauty products will do it 10 times. And you go, oh my God, I was listening to a podcast recently where the person had made it for $4 and charged $45 for it. And you think that is ludicrous. But when you look at what has to go into it, so there's the research and development, there's the marketing, there's the PR, there's the social, there's so many things, the point of sales and everything that you need to do, like the consumer surveys, everything. And then the distributors want a huge margin. There isn't actually that much left. So I had to learn that, because I thought with a distributor for us, they normally want a 5 times on the price.
Okay.
So a multiple on the price. So they went, and I was like, wow. But if they don't get that, they can't do the margin because they have to sell it on to the retailer. And the retailers generally want 60-odd%.
Yep.
So, so you've got to sort of weigh up when you do this, and that's a hard bit. But you can always change your pricing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, I've said this is the price, and the people that said it's ridiculously expensive, whatever I put it at, they'd say it's ridiculously expensive.
Yeah. Good. All right. So you've got to the point where you've now got something that you can sell potentially. So what next?
Well, what I invested in was PR, which was disproportionate to what I was doing. But I know the value of PR because of my hairdressing background. But on a product, when you think about how big the world is in your market, And for us, we had a hairbrush that we sell in so many countries because people have the same issues. So a PR can transcend over everywhere, on social and awards and things, we can go everywhere. So once we had really good social visibility on Instagram, there were businesses in America that found us, i.e. Goop, Shen Beauty, Anthropology, that saw us on our social. The other thing we did was start entering awards, beauty awards. So we entered awards like, like Woman and Home, Good Housekeeping, Sunday Times Style, various awards. And so far, we have won 33 awards.
Amazing. Very good.
Which the only problem with that is they do ask you, the big awards, to pay for usage.
to pay to say that you've won.
Yeah, because this is the worst bit, right? They go, congratulations, you've won this award, best hairbrush for a magazine. Well, it will cost you £3,000 a year to use it. And you go, yeah, £3,000 a year,
Yeah. All right.
So well, one big one we won was Allure Beauty, which is a big American one, which you don't even get to enter. The beauty editors choose you.
Okay, nice. Which
was lovely. And they said, you've won this for best hairbrush. I thought, wow. And then I got an invoice for $5,000 if I want to use it. So I don't know if it's an award or just a business,
That sounds like I need to get them on ScaleUp Radio and then get to understand their business model.
Get the ScaleUp Radio Awards and then you charge people to put the thing on. But the awards did resonate because it was good for people to see that there's outside influence and validating it. So that did help. And we got into lots of magazines, and that was our advertising.
Okay. Very good.
So that's where I put our money in, really.
Yeah. And then you started building a network of distributors, by the sounds of it, to enable you to be in these various countries and actually sell.
Well, we did our website, which is your website's your best margin.
Yep.
So if you can get people to your website, that's best. And actually, when I was telling people about all the channels, if you had a product you make and you could do advertising on Google or TikTok or anything, it's quite a good resource because what you're spending on the ad spend, if it goes straight to your website, you haven't really got masses of outgoings. I did the website and we did Amazon too. And when we were on this TV show, the customer is always right. We sold £100,000 in 1 week of mantas.
Okay.
It was so big that Amazon shut us down because they thought we were laundering money. I was like, no, we're not laundering money. So that was good to get your Amazon page. But if you're going to do an Amazon, I would say try and do Amazon seller because you're in control of it.
Yeah.
So we were on those different platforms, which worked well. And then distributors, we had certain distributors that found us and said, we'd love to distribute your product. So then we went to, let's say, Canada, and we started doing Canada, Greece we did, and various other countries. But I was very naive because we just started it, and my ego got carried away because I was flattered that someone wanted to sell it. So we sort of had distributors, and then we had our direct consumer and Amazon. And then I went to QVC very early on. And I knew a John Fried who does a shampoo. He helped me get on there, but not helping me. He just made sure someone saw it. And when they loved it, they said, we'll get on there. And then we did really well on QVC UK. And then someone contacted me, an agent for QVC USA. And that took 2 years to get on that. And now we're on QVC USA. And that is phenomenal.
Okay.
What you can do in that.
Yeah.
So then to give examples, so we're on direct to consumer, Amazon, Pure Play. Then we're on distributors. Then we go direct to retail, like Goop. Then we're on TV channels, and now we're on duty free on the airlines. So we're just launching on Virgin, Aer Lingus, Singapore Airlines, Eva Airlines, and some Chinese ones. So to say we've spread ourselves thin is an understatement.
And how are you keeping control of all of these relationships? Is that how many's in your team?
Well, that's another good point, right? We've got a new head of sales who's amazing, and she's looked at everything we're doing and put us into some order. So how we've sort of gone backwards to go forwards. So when we look at it, we look who's a really good distributor, who's a good retailer, make sure we have some minimum order quantities that they're going to order.
Right.
We've now gone to certain trade shows, which I always recommend someone does, because a trade show, you speak to businesses direct, distributors and retailers direct. You can show them your product, and then you can get a good agreement together, and then you can build up and get support with them. So that's what we're doing this year. And she's put us into some sort of order because she's taken the emotion out of what we're doing and looked at it a lot more practically.
Yeah, and reviewing those distributor agreements, which sounds like to start with they were a little bit ad hoc, almost whatever they you thought might work for them. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. So what happens is we looked at these distributor agreements. Yeah, and you're absolutely right. She would roll her eyes at some of them because they weren't. They're too loose. They didn't have certain targets in. And so it's not terrible because we all want to work together and they're nice people. So we can review everything. Yeah. It's just now we know the product is doing a lot better. So there's a lot more demand. And I would say also with someone, if you've got a new idea, you've got to be patient because people don't know. There's so much out there. If it's you've got to try and get your mark on it. And a lot of people, they see so many products, it could take a while for someone to really like it. So start small and find your niche. I mean, I know what our customer is, who our customer is.
Okay.
And then once you get those on board, then you can go outside.
Excellent. So over that journey then, what are some of the key things that you think have really contributed to your success, the things that you've got right?
Belief.
Okay.
So once you get a belief, and once you know if you really know your product's good, and our product is really good. So it's not like I say it's okay, it's really good. So that gives me a lot of, I can relax knowing it's good. So I would say get the product right, because whatever you're selling, if you really believe in it and you know the quality's good and it's really good value for someone, then you can always be proud. If you go into something thinking, like, for example, with our one, we had a time when there was a bonding glue went off one of the runs we did, and the handle came off because it hadn't been bonded properly. And every time someone said to me, "Oh, this has happened," I'll just send them a new one for free. Yeah, because I knew that was a small batch that wasn't right. But I would say I've learned, believe in what you're doing, make sure the quality is really good so you can be proud of it. I also think, not saying having an infinite purpose, but I know that brushes have been a certain way for so long. So I'm trying to change the way that people brush their hair and scalp. And that isn't going to be done overnight.
Right.
So you have to create the interest, you have to get the education right to make sure you do that. So what I've learned is patience, and also the key is getting people much better and cleverer than you around you. That is absolute key. I mean, I don't ever try and get someone that knows less than you.
So what sort of people have you mentioned head of sales, you mentioned earlier on as well with the lady from Extra Business School helping you there. What sort of people have you
well, I've got a really good CFO who I got through a friend or a colleague that I knew, who works with small startups, and he's still with me now. And Nick Lawson, he's very good. He's very level-headed, knows all his numbers. He's not in beauty or anything at all, but he knows what he doesn't know. But he's really good. I've got a really good accounts manager that keeps everything in check, and she's been from us from the start. And it might be we outgrow her, because once we get bigger, she might not be able to do it. But they're really lovely and excellent to work with. And then we've got a good logistics person that is full time.
Yeah.
And we've got a head of sales, and we're getting a sales admin now. And then my PR and IT team are satellited out.
Brilliant.
So,
and what was the first key hire? Because presumably at the start it was essentially you going around talking to the adult toy industry, trying to get the right material. but from there, who was your first key hire?
Well, it was logistics and sales. So I had someone because what I ended up doing, at first I thought, can I pick and pack, right?
Yeah. And
our first year, I think we sold about 35,000 units.
Yeah.
There is no way I was going to be able to pick and pack that, right? So we had a fulfillment center. And the problem with fulfillment centers is when you first start, you call them up and they want to know how many units you do a week.
Yeah.
And if you don't do enough, they're not interested. So we had found one in Essex that really supported us and said, yeah, we'll do it for you. And it started off tiny. And then suddenly it grew quite quickly. And then everyone goes, oh, yeah, we'll do that for you. We'll do that for you. And now we have 2 fulfillment centers in America, one on the East Coast and one on the West Coast. We have one in the UK. We have one in Germany. And we have China that we deliver to Xworks, which means the Asian countries pick it up from there.
Okay.
So basically, we got sort of 5 distribution or fulfillment centers that we can sell to. So it's important to have one in Europe because we have a euro account now, so people can buy in euros.
Right. Yep.
And there's no duty to pay for them. So if you're a distributor and you're from Spain, you get delivered from Germany, there's no issue. This is all really expensive to set up and complicated. But if you want to do Europe, you can't really ship from the UK because now with Brexit, there's duty and customs and everything else involved.
Yeah. And where is it made actually? Did you say Asia? Is that?
Yeah, in China.
In China.
And the interesting thing with China is when I first went, I wanted to make it in the UK, and we had a meeting in the UK with the company where all the guys were sitting around a table. There was Danny and I at one end, and the guys are all puffing their chest up, saying how they can make it, what they can charge, why you need to be with a British company. And they went on for a while, and Danny just tapped the table with her finger and said, "Can I just ask one question?" And they said, yeah, what is it? And she said, "Where do you get your tooling made?" And they all went, China. So she said, "Thanks very much." And what we realized, it's a brilliant question.
Yeah,
because,
love it.
The Chinese, they're very good at this twin shot overmolding, which is the bonding the 2 parts together. And the tooling was a lot cheaper there. And because of the way internet works and everything, you're in touch with them all the time. And I went over to the factory pre-COVID. I made sure the quality was right, the working conditions, everything. And we make it actually in 3 different factories. So it can't be copied. So one part is made in one, then it's moved to another, then it's moved to another.
Oh, that's interesting.
So
nice.
If you make it all in one, then it comes off the production line. It's going to be easier for it. They can always get round it, but if you do it in bits and pieces, then it's much more challenging.
Interesting. So you're spreading the know-how. It's very nice. Like it. Very good. So lots of things you got right. You've already mentioned 1 or 2 things, but what would you say, with a little bit of hindsight, you might do a bit differently?
Maybe I went too quickly with different. I responded to everyone who was interested quite quickly, in terms of I didn't stick to one channel. And if I'd worked on my direct consumer a lot more and did Google ads, and that could have worked well. Although I have loved the excitement of just growing everywhere. It's just been such a buzz, and sometimes being too formulaic. Sometimes it's nice to move around, but I have had to put a lot of investment in. I mean, the other thing is, Kevin, we from day one gave to charity. So there's a charity called the Little Princess Trust.
Yep.
And they supply wigs for children with cancer. And again, I went to Danny said to me, look, if we're going to do this, we've got to do it for the right reasons. So for day one, we're going to do something good. And I went to some charities and said, I've got this lovely hairbrush. It's great for people with cancer. And they said, no, we just need money. Just give us money. I said, well, I can't give you money because I'm a startup. I've got brushes. So when I met with Little Princess Trust, they had a stiff, horrible brush that was for the wigs. And I said, no, try this. And they went, oh, this is amazing. So every child in the UK and Ireland that has cancer gets a Manta hairbrush for their wig with Little Princess Trust. So we've so far given over 6,000 Mantas.
Wow. That's both amazing, but also frightening, isn't it? 6,000 children with cancer that you, But
they don't know, but it's always good results. A lot of times they do really well. Kids are brilliant. They're so resilient. But what's lovely, they have their hair shaved and then they have their wig on and they can use the Manta for their wig. And then they also use it to stimulate the scalp. And then when their hair's growing back, they're looking after their hair and stimulating, which is what Danny should have done. Yeah. So it's the more we can do with them, the better. And they're an amazing charity, Little Princess Trust. So and we're ambassadors of their trust now. So we love it. And it actually, do you know what, Kevin? Because it gives you a purpose, it's bigger than, if someone said, oh, what money do you make? Yeah. That's one thing. But actually, when you say how many people can you help? Yeah. It makes you feel so much better.
Absolutely. And that, that's a question I often ask is, what's the legacy you want to leave?
Yeah, well, I know that I want to be able to change a bit like it's a small thing, but when people brushing their teeth, as you said before, they now massage their gums more. They don't ram it to recede their gums, right? Now, if I can change how people are mindfully looking after their hair and scalp, once you've got better hair and scalp, you've got much more confidence. And once you've got much more confidence, you feel better and then you treat people better. So overall, we all worry about how we look and everything. But if you feel great about yourself and people are living longer and looking great and feeling great, I think that's a nice thing to do for people. Yeah. And especially we're doing a lot more. We've got loads of new ideas we're doing as well, which I'm sort of restricted in a bit because I need more cash coming in to keep developing new products.
And it's all self-funded or through cash flow?
Yeah, it's all self-funded. I put probably so far about 600 in.
Goodness.
So it's a lot, right?
Yeah.
I would do it all again tomorrow because it's just so much fun. I mean, I've never had so much fun because when I look back, this is the bit that's the most exciting bit because it could all go wrong, right?
Yeah. Exciting and terrifying at the same time. Yep.
Yeah, but this is the bit in a book you read and you think, I want to know what's going to happen. Yeah. If I said, we were turning over so much money that I bought a lovely Ferrari, people go, that's pretty boring. So you want to know the bit that could go wrong. And I'm meeting so many wonderful people. I mean, the fact I've met you, we're having this chat, I would have never done this without making Manta. So the connections you make and the people you meet, and I met so many lovely people. And being involved in the charity. And we have letters and everything from people saying how it's really helped their hair and scalp, or if someone's had an illness, it's really been good and they have less hair breaks, you feel better. I mean, those sort of things
Brilliant.
Make you feel it's all worthwhile,
Yeah, absolutely. So you also had a very successful business with 50 or 60 salons, I think you were saying, with 56 salons with Headmaster. So what's what's different about running Manta than from that? Well, that's a good, Manta is, because Manta was something I wanted to do,
when I was with Headmasters, there are 5 of us as directors, and it's much more corporate. It's a bigger company, and we've grown up, and you sit around a board and you discuss things, and it's a great company, but it's not so fluid now. When we were younger, it was easier to make rash decisions and do stuff. So I like the freedom of having Manta and making the decisions and just being quite fluid. But it happens with every big company. If you speak to any big company, as soon as they start becoming very successful, systems come in place. And the money might come in, but the fun sometimes goes. I love the excitement of growing, and I can't wait to see how we're going to grow. So that's what I really want to do.
Good. And what do you see as the biggest challenges then for you moving forwards with Manta?
Well, the biggest challenges are making sure we get enough product in, because we have product in all of our different fulfillment centers, but it's trying to plan who's going to be ordering what in what when.
Right.
So that is always going to be the challenge for us.
So having the right amount of product in the right place, essentially. Yeah,
because, for example, we've got a meeting next Monday with a really big chain of department stores in America, and another chain who have got a big pharmacy in America, but they might start with 150 stores.
Right.
And you need to make sure you can fulfill those. And if you're dealing with QVC, they might order minimum 5,000 pieces to 10,000 pieces. So, and they're consignment, so it's sale or return. So, you need to have enough product. So what we do now is we have product made in China waiting. So I've got a stockpile there, and then when I need to get it to different countries, I'll get it there. So this is where it's a challenge, because you don't know. Like, we're just launching in China now, and China could be huge, but I don't know. So everything is sort of, this is what the exciting. I just don't know where it's going to be.
And of course, expensive as well to hold that stock.
Oh my God! Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've got a great relationship with my manufacturer, so they sort of make the stock now for me without me having to pay for it until I draw it down.
That's a pretty good relationship. Yeah.
Well, they've seen how it's growing, and they've seen that all the evidence is there. Do you see? So they've done stuff before, and once you see how good a product is and what it does, and how I'm running it, they can sort of think it's a sort of, they're hedging their bets, but they don't also want me to go off to find someone else.
Yeah. And
we have got a great relationship. So it's all about that, getting good relationships.
Very good. Excellent. Well, it's been absolutely fascinating. And I know we could talk for hours. There's a lot of things we haven't covered. You all right for a couple of quick fire questions?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So if you could go back to your younger self, what advice would you give yourself?
I would say to myself, there is much more you can do than you possibly imagine. I would say, do not limit yourself.
Lovely.
Because that's what, when I was a child and you think this is what I can do or what I can't do, I would say we put a ceiling on ourselves too many times.
Great. Excellent. What, I don't know if you're a reader or a listener. Are there any podcasts, books, other resources that you'd point to?
Yeah. I've been listening to lots more podcasts. Podcasts are brilliant because they give you that. So there'll be some nugget in something. And I was listening to Secret Leaders, which is quite good recently.
Okay.
And that's been really good. I mean, there's always the Diary of a CEO and those sort of mainstream ones, high performance ones. But Secret Leaders is quite good because they have entrepreneurs on there that tell their story. I mean, your one, of course, is good because it's all about. I would say that's where you get the most information, and it's really helped because you'll have someone on your podcast tell you one thing, and you think, that really helps.
Yeah.
It's a lonely place out there, being an entrepreneur.
Yeah. Good. Excellent. Thank you. Any apps or little bits of software that you put a lot in store?
No, I don't really use apps so much. One book I was going to say, Simon Sinek, It's All About the Why.
Yeah. Okay.
That is a must.
Yeah.
You probably all know that one, but that is a must, just about why you do something rather than what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Excellent. No, very good one. So no particular apps you haven't on your phone. What's on your phone? What apps you got on your phone?
Well, you know what? What I've got on my phone is all my children's apps that they keep. I'm trying to, I have to look at their apps and try and mediate what they do all the time. So I don't tend to use apps so much. I mean, I listen to the app, the podcast one.
Yeah.
And I try to do that, but I'm generally working a lot. And I do read business books, but I've gravitated towards the podcast just because they're easier to have bite-sized chunks.
Yeah.
I was reading the best book I've read recently was Shoe Dog, which is Phil Knight's book about Nike.
Yeah.
And that is amazing read.
Yeah.
And again, he loved it. He lived and breathed the product.
Yeah. Yeah. Excellent. Who's had the most influence on you?
Who's had the most influence? That's a really good point. I would say my mum. My mum's great. And the reason what my mum's done is when I was younger and my dad left, she had always been you can't give someone enough love, a kid. And if you give them love and give them support, that gives them the confidence. So I think without that, I think you need the love. And I think mums are brilliant for that generally, aren't they? They just give you that support. And they're constant, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Good. And you've kind of already...
And my wife, Danny. Sorry, I shouldn't even say that.
Shall I ask that again? We'll start with Danny.
Yeah, we should do that. But you know what? I would say through my life, it's been my mum. But since I met Danny, which I met her when I was 35, so older in life, she has been, what we've gone through together, Annie and I, with her being ill, we're a real team. And she is phenomenal. She's got a podcast about menopause after cancer.
Right.
And she does tons of work about how to look after yourself. She does so much on that field.
Yeah.
And it sort of works in conjunction, the both of us together. But she's a phenomenal person. So, really, Danny and
your
my mum. Yeah.
And what's the name of the podcast that Danny runs?
It's Menopause After Cancer.
Great.
And it's just that a lot of people don't realize what they can't take or what they can take. And she has all these guest speakers on, all oncologists and doctors and sleep people and dietitians and everything, all about this area, because so many people have had cancer and survived, but no one really tells them when they've gone through menopause how to look after yourself. And she went through early menopause, so it really resonated. And she said there was no one helping. So she was in Parliament the other day. She's been on this morning. She's done an app called Balance App. So she's got lots of stuff she's doing, amazing work. And she's a true inspiration.
Yeah, sounds like a phenomenal lady. Yeah, absolutely. And last one before we wrap. I think you've sort of covered this already, but in terms of your most successful marketing approach, tactic, what would you say that is?
I think in terms of probably getting the Queen's Award for innovation, and I would recommend people to do this, right? It doesn't cost you anything, and apply for the Queen's Award. There's different ones. It's Queen's Award for Enterprise. So that works really well, because if you do get it, it's a really good brand to have on your product or your service.
Great.
That's really good. And also in my PR and head of comms, Laura, she's been really good to have a really good PR to believe it's worth putting that in, because they can help you get your message out.
Perfect. Brilliant. Tim, thank you very much indeed for being my guest today. If people would like to get hold of you or find out more about Manta, what's the best way for them to do that?
I mean, they can always email me, tim@mantahair.com.
Yeah.
That's probably best. They can always direct message. Is it DM me? But that's probably on Manta Hair Instagram.
Yeah.
But again, I'm not so good with all that sort of stuff. I don't know about you, Kevin. Are you good with that?
No, I'm not.
Exactly.
Yeah, not particularly. So email is your preferred.
Probably email, because I will definitely see that anyway. They can DM me on Manta Hair. So
Right.
as well.
And the website?
It's mantahair.com.
Perfect.
So
Great.
they check that out and they can see everything there. So
Brilliant. Tim, it's been absolutely fascinating, and thank you very much for sharing your story today.
brilliant. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. Thanks.
I hope you enjoyed that discussion, and if you're building and scaling your own business, you might well be interested in our book, The Entrepreneurial Scale-Up System. And it's exactly what it says on the tin. It's a practical handbook around scaling a business in a structured way. And you can order a copy on all your favorite online retailers, including an audio version, or you can find it and other supporting resources on our website, www.esusgroup.co.uk. That's esusgroup.co.uk, which is esusgroup.co.uk.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.